Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to Gaia Sanctorum. I'm Danielle, and this is Living the Wheel, where we follow the cycles of nature and the cosmos and the wisdom of the five bodies to navigate our human experience with ancient knowledge and embodied practice. Last week, the sky handed us an incredibly rare event, a 7-planet stellium in Aries and a new moon that I called the primary burn, because that is exactly what it was. Every planet stacked in the sign of the pioneer, the warrior, the one who goes first, igniting simultaneously at the moment of a new lunar cycle. If you felt like you were running on pure electricity last week, you were. The primary burn committed everything it had to a single direction. That's what the primary burn does. And now we're in the final week of April. The fire has done its work. The trajectory has been confirmed. Before we go any further, I want to be completely transparent with you about something personal, because I think that some of you are feeling it too, and you might not know why. Personally, I have 5 placements in Aries and 3 in Taurus. And if you look at where the sky has been living since March, it has been sitting directly on top of my entire chart. The stellium, the eclipses, the conjunctions, the ingresses, all of it has been moving through my personal territory for weeks. When I tell you that I have felt like I am in the spin cycle, I am not speaking metaphorically. I am pointing at my chart and saying, this is why. And this week, the sun moves into Taurus on the same day the week opens. The light of consciousness is now walking directly into my 3 Taurus placements: Venus, Mars, and Saturn. Just as Uranus is preparing to leave Taurus for the last time, the sun is arriving to say goodbye to an era that has been reshaping my second house since 2018. I feel the weight of that farewell, and there's a strange grace to the timing. But here is what I also know: the spin cycle is the clearing. And when the clearing is complete, the first wind arrives. This week, that wind has a name, and its name is Uranus. Let's go ahead and look at the sky. So on Monday, April 20th, Sun enters Taurus. The week opens with a farewell and a welcome simultaneously. The sun steps out of the fire of Aries and into the earth of Taurus. It's arriving in Taurus just in time to witness Uranus's departure after 7 years of radical renovation. Taurus is the sign of the body, the senses, the deep pleasure of being alive in physical form. And the sun entering Taurus this week is asking you to inhabit your body fully, to receive the sensory experience of being alive rather than simply passing through it on the way to the next thing. For those with Taurus placements, the sun walking through your house and lighting up whatever lives there, you want to pay attention to what illuminates. Now, on that same day, we have Mercury conjunct Saturn at 7 degrees 55 minutes. So on the same day that Sun enters Taurus, the messenger meets the elder in the sign of fire. When they meet in Aries, the mind is not just quick and direct. It is precise, it is serious, willing to commit to what it knows. This is the transit that says you've been circling something for a while. Name it, make it real. And then on that same day, we've got Mercury conjunct Mars at 8 minutes 36 degrees of Aries. So within hours, Mercury will be meeting Mars. Now the mind does not just have precision, it has drive. Thoughts that have been circling are going to want to become action. Words that have been forming want to be spoken. The mind has been handed both the discipline of Saturn and the courage of Mars simultaneously. Use it. The window is extremely brief and it's significant. Then on Friday, April 24th, we have Venus conjunct Uranus at 29 degrees of Taurus. The second threshold crossing of the week at the anaretic degree, the final breath before the boundary. Venus and Uranus standing together at 29 degrees of Taurus before they both cross over. So what you value is about to be electrified. What has felt fixed and settled in your material world is receiving a lightning strike of clarity before the terrain changes entirely. Let it show you what is actually solid and what has been just feeling that way. Then we have Mercury trine Lilith at 13 degrees. So on Friday, April 24th, the wild feminine knowing that runs underground in all of us is speaking clearly on this day. Mercury in flowing trine means that you can actually hear it. Trust what arrives unbidden on Friday. That is Lilith working it through the channel Mercury is holding open for her. And then on Friday, April 24th, hours after the Uranus conjunction, we have Venus entering Gemini. Venus crosses the threshold. She goes in first. She scouts the new territory before Uranus arrives. Venus entering Gemini means the way we love, the way we connect and find beauty is shifting from the slow and sensory certainty of Taurus into the curious and playful and communicative energy of Gemini. The fixed is about to become fluid. And then on Saturday, April 25th, Sun squares Pluto at 5 degrees. Now, the pressure that breaks the membrane. Pluto does not ask politely. Whatever has been resisting the change of this week, this is the moment that Pluto applies force that makes staying impossible. It is not comfortable, but it is necessary. And then, very early on Sunday, April 26th, Uranus enters Gemini. This is the headline of the week, the headline of the year. The last time Uranus was in Gemini was 1941 to 1949, a 7-year period in which the collective nervous system was completely rewired. That era begins again on April 26th. Uranus and Gemini for the next 7 years means the information infrastructure of the collective is going to be disrupted, rewired, and rebuilt in ways that none of us can fully anticipate. Artificial intelligence, quantum communication, the nature of how truth is established and circulated. All of it is under Uranian renovation beginning this week. This is not abstract. You will feel it in your nervous system. The fire cleared the ground last week. The first wind is arriving now. And then on the 26th, we have the sun sextile the north node at 6 degrees. So on the same day that Uranus enters Gemini, The sun forms a flowing sextile to the north node. The light of consciousness is aligning with the point of collective soul evolution on the same day that Uranus changes signs. That is not a coincidence. It is confirmation. This crossing was meant. You are aligned. And the gentlest transit of the week, Venus sextile Neptune at 3 degrees, arrives on that most significant day. Venus, newly in Gemini and still electric from her meeting with Uranus, in flowing conversation with Neptune. This softens the landing into that new era. The new world is not only disruptive, but it's beautiful. We also have Mercury square Jupiter at 18 degrees. Now, that is the mind straining past its current container. The vision is bigger than the current framework can hold. And that is the point. The thinking that brought you to this threshold is not the same thinking that will navigate what comes next. Let the discomfort of not knowing yet be what it is. That is expansion at work. So let's get into the 5 bodies. Your physical body, the physical body that has been carrying the fire of April, needs something very specific from this week. And it is not more activation. It is not more intensity. The body that has been in the spin cycle needs the launch pad beneath its feet. The sun moving into Taurus at the opening of the week is not incidental. So Taurus is the sign of the physical body in its most elemental expression. The body as home, as sacred ground, as the thing deserving of pleasure and nourishment and rest rather than simply endurance. The sun in Taurus is asking, are you actually in here? Not performing wellness, not pushing through, actually inhabiting this vehicle with your full presence. Think of what happens after a primary burn in a rocket launch. The launch pad does not burn, it holds. This week, your physical body is being asked to be that structure. Earth medicine is not about dampening the fire. It's about giving it a body strong enough to carry what is coming next. So the first food I'm going to recommend is garlic chili lamb chops. This is Mars medicine made edible. Lamb is one of the oldest ritual animals in the Mediterranean and Near Eastern traditions, carrying the weight of transformation and sacrifice. The garlic is Martian. The chili brings heat that moves rather than sits. Cook them fast on high heat. Do not make it fussy. Mars does not fuss. Eat them knowing that you're tending a body that has done serious work and needs nourishment. And then spring pea and mint risotto. So after the fire comes the first tender green thing. Spring peas carrying the living intelligence of emergence, of the thing that came through the other side anyway. Mint is cooling and Venusian, perfect for the week that Venus is moving into Gemini. The risotto is Taurus medicine at its core. It's rich and it's slow, and asking you to stand at the stove and stir rather than rushing toward the next thing. This is what you eat when the fire is banking and the first green shoots appear through the ash. And then black bean and kale stew. Saturn demands that we tend the foundation even when everything is changing. Black beans are deep medicine, dense with plant protein and slow releasing carbohydrates. Kale is iron and minerals and chlorophyll, the green blood of the earth, feeding the red blood of your body. The physical body that is going to carry Uranus in Gemini for the next 7 years needs building blocks, not decoration. Let's move on to herbs. The first one is going to be comfrey. Comfrey's old name is knitbone. After weeks of high intensity activation, the physical body may be holding more tension and micro depletion than you realize. Comfrey works in the deep tissues, in the connective tissue, and the places that carry that silent weight of everything that we move through without naming it. It is rebuilding medicine. Use it topically as a poultice or as an infused oil on areas of chronic tension. Note that comfrey is best used topically or in short-term applications under informed guidance. And then psyllium. So the gut is where we process everything, not just food, but experience. Psyllium husk is gentle and fibrous and deeply cleansing without being aggressive. It moves, needs to move. It creates space for the new. Saturn medicine applied to the digestive tract. Unglamorous? Yes, but effective and foundational. And then horehound. Horehound is a bitter, warming, Mars ruled herb with a long history in both respiratory and digestive medicine. After the Aries stellium, the chest may be holding tension, the place where we hold the unexpressed and the overexpressed simultaneously. So, horehound opens the chest and clears what has accumulated in the passages that connect breath to the voice to expression. Make a simple tea, and it is not a subtle flavor, but that is the point. So, for your practice, the practice of the physical body this week is inspired by the Sufi whirling dervishes. The right palm faces upward toward the sky, receiving from heaven. The left palm faces downward toward the earth, giving back to the ground. The body turns. In the turning, the practitioner becomes the axis, the still point around which everything moves. So stand with enough space around you. Extend your arms, right palm up, left palm down, and begin turning slowly. Stay with it for as long as your body wants to, and then stop and feel what settles. Feel the earth beneath your feet receiving your weight. This is threshold medicine. You circle before you cross. You move the old energy out so the new one has somewhere to land. Now, for your journaling question, where has the fire of this month taken up residence in your body? And what would it mean to finally let it finish what it came here to do? Now let's move on to the mental body. The mental body this week is receiving an extraordinary invitation. At the opening of the week, Mercury conjuncts both Saturn and Mars in Aries. So this is forging the mind into something precise and courageous simultaneously. At the end of the week, we've got Mercury squaring Jupiter, and the framework the mind has been working within is no longer large enough to hold what is trying to come through. From the focused blade at the opening to the expansion that breaks the container at the closing, Gemini is the sign of the eternal student, the questioner, the one who cannot stop wanting to know. With Uranus entering Gemini. The mental body is being asked to step into that curiosity without the need to arrive at certainty. So here are some foods that will help with that. Shredded cabbage and fennel slaw with mandarin oranges. This is Gemini food in its most honest expression. It is light and fresh and varied. It doesn't require any kind of ceremony. Cabbage is one of the great brain foods. It is rich in compounds that support cognitive function and reduce neural inflammation. Fennel is Mercury's own plant. It's clarifying and digestive. The mandarin is the surprise note, keeping the attention engaged and alert. Eat it standing up if you want to. Gemini does not require you to even sit down to eat. And then pumpkin seed and pine nut brittle. So both are exceptional brain foods. Pumpkin seeds are dense in zinc and magnesium. They are critical for neurological function and nervous system resilience. Pine nuts carry healthy fats that feed the brain's long game. Now, the brittle format is pure Gemini because you break it apart and you eat it in little pieces, a little here and a little there. It is also Uranian food because brittle looks like one thing and then suddenly it's in 100 unexpected pieces. And then green shakshuka. So this is made with zucchini, onions, and garlic, and spinach, and herbs, and eggs poached directly into the sauce. The eggs are Mercury food, quick protein for the mind, and carrying the energy of potential. And the green mirrors the new energy that is arriving this week, the first color that appears after fire has moved through. It is spiced with cumin and coriander and finished with fresh herbs, warm enough to honor Aries fire, while light enough to welcome what is coming. Let's go ahead and move on to the herbs. Eyebright. So, eyebright is named for what it does. It clears the vision, both historically for eye inflammation and energetically as a plant that sharpens perception and mental clarity. In a week when everything that we thought we understood about communication and information is being fundamentally disrupted, Eyebright helps you see clearly through that change rather than being blinded by the brightness of it. Use it as a tea or as a compress. And then coffee. Coffee is medicine this week, not as a habit, but as a ceremonial Mercury plant. Now, coffee was first used in Sufi monasteries in Yemen as an aid to nighttime prayer and study. It was understood as a sharpening of presence, a clearing of the channel between the individual mind and the larger knowing that it was reaching towards. This week, with Mercury conjuncting both Saturn and Mars, coffee drunk with intention becomes a ritual act of mental activation. Drink just 1 cup slowly and know what you are asking it to do. And then guarana. Guarana is Uranian in its delivery. It does contain caffeine, but it releases it more slowly due to its tannin content. So it provides sustained mental energy rather than a sharp spike followed by a crash. So this is indigenous Amazonian medicine. Their peoples have used it for endurance and focus and what they describe as an awakening of their mental power. A small amount goes a very long way. Uranus does not need more than a nudge to do what he does. And then for your practice, it's called the 4-year-old why. So take one situation that has been occupying your mind and ask why. Then take that answer and ask why again. I'm sure y'all have played this game. Keep asking with genuine, unstoppable curiosity of a 4-year-old who cannot believe that the world works the way that it does and needs to understand it all the way to the bottom. Not analysis, not problem solving, but pure, undefended curiosity, following the question wherever it leads. By the 5th or 6th why, you will find yourself arriving somewhere that you did not expect. This is the Uranian disruption of the mental body arriving through the most innocent possible doorway. Let it arrive. For your journaling question, what question keeps circling back that you keep answering too quickly? And what happens if you follow it all the way down like a 4-year-old who refuses to stop asking why? Now, for the emotional body. The emotional body this week is being invited into alchemy, not more processing of what the fire stirred up last week. Alchemy. So processing circles the wound. Alchemy moves through it and comes out on the other side as something fundamentally transformed. The sun entering Taurus adds a layer worth naming. Venus rules Taurus and governs everything that we love, everything that we value, and the way we receive beauty and pleasure and connection. The sun illuminating Taurus season is asking the emotional body to not only process what the fire brought up, but to begin receiving again, to let something good land. Let the sun in Taurus be permission to feel something sweet alongside whatever is still completing from the burn. Last week was the ignition, the primary burn. The burn activated everything. And if you have been feeling the aftermath of this in your body, in your chest, in your shoulders, in your jaw, you're not alone. You're not behind. You're right on time. The invitation is to let what was ignited actually complete the arc. Fire that does its work transforms. Fire that gets interrupted just burns. Now, for food. Luza and fig salad with honey vinaigrette. Luza is a Cypriot cured pork loin soaked in red wine and cured with salt and cinnamon and clove and black pepper and savory. Every element of that cure is astrologically alive this week. Red wine is Venusian and Dionysian. Salt is Saturn, cinnamon is Sun and Mercury, clove is Jupiter and Mars, black pepper is Mars, savory is Mercury. When you eat Lutza, you are eating this week's planetary medicine in every slice. And when you pair it with fresh figs, one of the oldest cultivated fruits in the Mediterranean, and a honey vinaigrette bridging the preserved and the fresh, this is ancestral emotional medicine. My great grandmother would have recognized this plate, and that is not a small thing. And then herbed goat cheese crostini. So, goat cheese is one of the most emotionally comforting foods in the Mediterranean tradition. It is creamy and soft and slightly tangy. The kind of food that makes you feel held without making you feel heavy. And then the herbs bring in the wild green world into what might otherwise be just purely indulgent. Not that that's a bad thing. This is comfort food with integrity. It says, You are allowed to receive pleasure without it costing you anything. Make it simple. Toast some good bread, spread it generously, sit down and eat it without guilt. And then next is Dorawat. So Dorawat is the national dish of Ethiopia and one of the great emotional body foods in the world. Slow braised chicken in a deeply spiced onion and berbere sauce served with injera. Injera is the fermented teff flatbread that is simultaneously used both as a plate and the utensil and the act of sharing. You eat Dorawat with your hands. You tear injera together. In a week, about the wind of Gemini arriving and the rewiring of the collective nervous system, Dorawat is the reminder that the oldest technology for emotional healing is still the shared table. And then for herbs, lemon verbena. So lemon verbena is one of the gentlest and most luminous of the nervine herbs. She lifts without stimulating, calms without sedating. She brings a quality of lightness to the emotional body that is genuinely difficult to find in other plants. Now, the scent alone is medicine. It is bright and clean and completely present. After the heaviness of the Aries stellium activation, lemon verbena says the hard part is moving through and something lighter is already on its way. If you can find her fresh, brew her fresh. And then cannabis. So, cannabis has been used as an emotional body medicine across cultures for thousands of years. And I want to speak to it in its full dignity as a plant teacher. For those who work with cannabis, both consciously and legally, it has a remarkable capacity to soften the defenses that the emotional body builds around its deepest material, creating internal spaciousness in which feelings that have been held very tightly can finally breathe and move. As always, know your relationship with this plant and work with it intentional. And then night blooming cereus. So this is a cactus that blooms only at night, only once, and the flower lasting only hours before it closes forever. Now, it is used historically as a heart tonic and as a plant for those moving through profound emotional thresholds. The kind of crossing that is genuinely irreversible. This week, as Uranus enters Gemini and 7 years of the known world gives way to 7 years of the unknown, night blooming cereus is for the grief of that crossing because every single threshold has its grief, even the ones that we are waiting for and looking forward to. So, your practice is an alchemical body integration. So you're going to begin with Saturn. I want you to stand with your feet on the ground and acknowledge the hard reality of whatever feeling is present. No softening, no story, just the truth of what is there. And name it out loud if you can. Then you move on to Mercury. You begin to move gently, walk, sway. Let the body find its own motion. Feel what the emotion actually feels like as it moves through your tissues. And then you move on to Mars. So this involves locating the core heat behind the feeling, not the story behind the feeling, but the fire underneath it, the life force that has been locked inside of that emotion, waiting to be reclaimed. And then you move on to Uranus. Shake it out. Literally shake your body the way animals do after a threat has passed. And then be still. Notice what clarity arrives in the space that the shaking opened. That clarity is your data. Write it down exactly as it comes to you. This is the alchemical sequence: acknowledgement, sensation, heat, and release. The feeling doesn't get discarded, it gets transformed. Now, for your journaling question, you have named the feeling, you have understood the feeling, but have you actually let it move through your body the way it needs to, heat and all, until it transforms into something new? Now, let's move on to the energetic body. The energetic body this week is learning a new vocabulary. With Uranus entering Gemini, the subtle body is being asked to develop the ability to read energetic information the way the mind reads visual information, to sense the field of what is present. And before the mind has time to really translate it into a story, Gemini governs the nervous system and the channels through which information travels. Now, Uranus governs electricity that runs between previously unconnected points. So together, they're asking for a new kind of perception, faster than thought, accessed through the subtle body rather than the analytic mind. The first food for that: togarashi shrimp and halloumi skewers. So this is fusion medicine. Japanese togarashi spice blend meeting Cypriot halloumi on a single skewer. Two completely different food traditions finding their resonance over an open flame. Now, the togarashi activates the energetic field through the senses before the mind has a chance to categorize it. The halloumi holds its form under heat, softening without melting, charring without dissolving. Two different things, the same fire. The energetic body lesson this week in a single dish. And then apricot chili prawn kebabs. Apricot is deeply Venusian. They are golden and sweet. Chili brings Mars, fierce and direct. The prawn is oceanic, carrying the energy of the depths. When all three meet on a skewer, you have created a dish that is energetically complex in exactly the way that this week calls for. The apricot caramelizes on the grill and becomes something it was not before the fire arrived. The fire transforms. Let it do what it came to do. And then a sun-dried tomato and tapenade tart. So sun-dried tomatoes carry concentrated solar energy. It's the fruit that has been through the fire of the sun and come out more itself than it was when it was fresh. Tapenade is ancient Mediterranean energy medicine, rich in healthy fats that feed the subtle body's clarity. Together in a tart, they are solar medicine held in earth energy. Food for the energetic body that needs both nourishment and grounding through the week of major planetary ingress. Now for herbs. Pine. So one of the great energetic clearing plants of the northern world, the resin, the needles, and the bark all carry a sharp, clean intelligence that moves stagnation from the subtle body, the way strong wind moves a fog from a valley. Pine has been burned in purification rituals across indigenous North American, Nordic, and Mediterranean traditions for centuries. This week, the first wind arrives after the fire. Pine clears the field so the new energy can move in cleanly. You can use an essential oil or make a tea from fresh needles or just simply spend time walking through the trees. The trees do the work. And then eucalyptus. So eucalyptus opens what has been closed. The respiratory system, the sinuses, the energetic channels through the chest and the throat and the head. In traditional Australian Aboriginal medicine, eucalyptus is one of the great purification plants. It is used in smoking ceremonies to clear the field and invite clear perception. Steam inhalation is the most direct application. Boil water, add a few drops of eucalyptus essential oil, lean over the bowl with a towel over your head, and breathe. You will feel your field shift within minutes. And then sarsaparilla. Sarsaparilla is a deeply grounding and purifying root. It's used across Central and South America and in the Caribbean as both a blood and a lymph cleanser. For the energetic body, it works in the deep channels where old energetic residue accumulates over time. After the intensity of the Aries stellium, sarsaparilla goes into those deep places and clears what more acute herbs cannot reach. Make it as a long decoction, simmered for at least 20 minutes, and then drink it as a tonic over several days. Some medicine cannot be rushed, and that in itself is a teaching. Now, for your energetic practice, I want you to choose two completely unrelated objects that are within reach. Sit with the first object. Do not think about what it is or where it came from. What I want you to do is feel into its energetic signature. What does it carry? What is its quality in your field? Not in your hands, but in the space around your body. Stay with it until you have something. Then I want you to do the same with the second object. Feel into it. And then feel into where these two fields touch. Not logically, but in your body, in the subtle layer. Where do they resonate? What thread connects them underneath the physical reality of what they are? This is training in clairsentience. This is the energetic body developing the vocabulary Uranus and Gemini is going to ask all of us to expand into over the next 7 years. Now for your journaling question. What in your life right now is carrying an energetic signature that you have not been willing to read honestly? And what would change if you felt into it without the story? Now for the spiritual body. The spiritual body this week is being asked to become a lightning rod. When Uranus moves into Gemini, the channel between above and below, between the transpersonal and the personal, is being upgraded. The spiritual body, willing to hold that channel open, is going to have access to a quality of knowing in the next 7 years that has not been available before. But a lightning rod that is not grounded is not a receiver. It is a hazard. The spiritual body this week needs both the opening and the anchor simultaneously. So, some foods that will help with that. Carbonated fruit salad. And yes, it's exactly what you think it is. So take beautiful, ripe, seasonal fruit and add a carbonated element to the preparation. The fruit seems to spark and fizz. It is a reminder that Uranus does not always arrive as disruption. Sometimes he arrives as pure delight. Sometimes the unexpected thing is not the one that breaks you open, but the one that makes you laugh out loud at how strange and extraordinary existence really is. Eat this with children if you have them or know them. Watch their faces. That is the Uranus and Gemini transmission in its purest form. And then wasabi chocolate ganache tarts. So dark chocolate is one of the great spiritual body foods across multiple traditions. The Mayans used cacao ceremonially as a heart opener and a plant teacher. Wasabi is Mars and Uranus simultaneously. It's a heat that arrives in the sinuses and the brain before you have even really registered the taste. Together in a ganache tart, they create an experience of genuine surprise. The nervous system does not know what is happening. And in that moment of not knowing, something true can arrive that the defended mind would have turned away at the door. And then gyro bao with wasabi tzatziki. So this is the dish that should not exist, and therefore it is completely perfect for Uranus entering Gemini. Greek gyro meat, roasted and spiced, tucked inside a Chinese bao bun with a tzatziki spiced with wasabi. It is impossible. It is inevitable. It is a collision of lineages discovering that they have more in common than anyone expected. The next 7 years are going to look a great deal like this dish. Things that seemed incompatible, finding their shared frequency. Eat it slowly. Let the lineages have a conversation on your tongue. Before we move into the spiritual body herbs, I want to be very, very clear about something. Nothing in this section is a suggestion, recommendation, or endorsement of illegal substance use. The plants that I am about to discuss have been used as sacred teachers across indigenous and ancestral traditions for thousands of years. And I am honoring that lineage and that wisdom. The laws governing these plants vary enormously depending on where you live. And I am not in a position to speak to your specific jurisdiction. What I am inviting you into is plant spirit communication, the practice of entering into a relationship with these teachers through study, through meditation, through intention, through the literature and the lineage, whether or not physical consumption is legal or appropriate for you. The medicine of a plant is not limited to ingestion. You can sit with the plant, learn its history, hold its image in meditation, and receive its teaching without ever putting it in your body. The spirit of the plant is available to all of us. How you choose to enter that relationship is between you, the plant, and the laws of wherever you call home. So, that said, the first one I'm going to talk about is Amanita muscaria, fly agaric. Amanita muscaria is one of the oldest plant spirits in human memory. She appears in the Vedic tradition as Soma, the divine drink of the gods that bridged the mortal and immortal and allowed the ancient seers to perceive what ordinary consciousness cannot reach. She lives in the shamanic traditions of Siberia, worked with for thousands of years as a doorway between the world of the living and the world of the ancestors. The red cap with white spots. Absalom's medicine. She has been here longer than almost any other teacher plant in the northern world. The spirit of Amanita teaches dissolution, not destruction, dissolution. The careful, necessary softening of the boundary between what you believe yourself to be and what you actually are. As Uranus enters Gemini and the collective mind is asked to dissolve its assumptions about the nature of information and intelligence, Amanita's teaching is deeply resonant. Sit with her image, study her history. Let her ask you the question that she has been asking humanity for millennia. Who are you when the story about yourself goes quiet? And next would be San Pedro. San Pedro has been growing along the slopes of the Andes Mountains for longer than the civilizations that learned to work with him. He appears in ceramic art from the Chavin culture of Peru, dating back over 3,000 years. The curanderos who carry his lineage call him Wachuma and understand him as a medicine of the heart, the organ that knows what the mind has not yet caught up to, the place where truth lands before it can be translated into language. What San Pedro teaches at the level of plant spirit is unconditional seeing. He shows you what is actually there with a quality of love so complete that even the hardest truth becomes bearable inside of it. Sit with his image, the towering cactus that survives extraordinary conditions and still flowers in the most beautiful way. Ask him what he would show you if you were willing to see it. And then psilocybin mushrooms. The Mazatec curandera Maria Sabina called them children, little saints, the ones who speak. The mushrooms in her tradition were not a substance. They were a presence, a voice, a living intelligence that arrived when invited and spoke in the particular language of the soul that ordinary waking consciousness rarely accesses. Across the Mesoamerican traditions, they were called Tionanacato, the flesh of the gods. When the Spanish arrived and attempted to suppress their use, the practice survived in the hands of healers like Maria Sabina for 500 years, waiting. The plant spirit of the psilocybin mushroom teaches the experience of the default mind going quiet. When the narrator steps back, what the traditions consistently report finding is not chaos, but connection, the felt sense of belonging to something larger than the personal self. Study her lineage, honor the traditions that carried her through centuries of suppression, and sit with the question that she has always asked. What becomes possible when the story you have been telling about the nature of your own mind is finally open to revision? So your practice for the spiritual body is called the lightning rod. So I want you to begin with Saturn. Stand with your feet solidly on the ground. Feel the earth beneath you. Press into your heels. Root yourself completely because you cannot safely receive a lightning strike without a ground. This step is not optional. Don't rush it. Don't rush it. So I want you to move on to Mars. Breath of fire, short, sharp exhales through the nose in rapid succession, the belly pumping with each exhale. 30 seconds to a minute. Build the charge, prepare the vessel. Then I want you to move on to Uranus. You are going to visualize a column of white light descending from far above, entering through the crown of your head and moving through your entire channel, through your feet and into the core of the earth. Not a gentle warmth, a lightning strike, fast, electric, complete. You are the rod. Light moves through you. Let it be total. And then you're going to move to Mercury immediately without thinking. Notice the first thing that is present: an image, a word, a sound, a feeling, a color, a knowing. Whatever arrived first before the mind could dress it up or dismiss it. Write it down exactly as it came. Don't interpret it. Just receive it. That is your transmission for this week. The lightning moved through. What it left behind is yours. Now, for your journaling question, when the lightning moves through you and the first thing arrives before your mind can dress it up or dismiss it, do you trust it? And if not, what is that costing you? Here's what the week is actually asking of you: not the performance of readiness, not the frantic movement of someone who has been given permission to finally go. The first wind after the fire is not an instruction to run. It is an invitation to feel what it is like when the air finally moves again. The physical body is going to be fed from the earth up, treated as sacred ground rather than a vehicle to push past its limits. The mental body is going to be invited into the curiosity that follows questions all the way down. The emotional body is being handed the alchemical sequence, the movement from acknowledgement through sensation, through heat, through release. The energetic body is going to get to practice receiving energetic information before the mind translates it into something familiar. And the spiritual body is going to become the lightning rod, the clear channel between the transmission and the earth. That is integration, not one body doing all the work while the others wait on the side, but all five in conversation with the same week, the same sky, and the same threshold. And I want to name something that this week is asking me to finally say out loud. The five bodies fragmentation archetype quiz is almost ready. 5 archetypes, 5 distinct expressions of how a soul moves through the world across all 5 bodies. Your results will reveal your unique archetype blend, and with it, a language for something that you've probably been feeling for your entire life without really having a name for. The quiz is coming very soon, so please stay close. Your archetype is in there already, waiting to be named. If you want to begin doing the deeper week now, the 5 bodies assessment is the most direct path I know to understanding your specific. The full assessment maps your entire terrain. The mini assessment is the starting point. Both are linked in the descriptions below. And if this work is landing for you and you want to be in a community where it is actually witnessed, empowered authenticity is where we do this work together. It is completely free, it is uncensored, and it is built for integration, not fragmentation. And the link is also in the description below. The primary burn was last week. This week, the first wind arrived. And what the wind carries is not chaos, it is seed. The cleared ground that the fire left behind is exactly the kind of soil that the seed needs, receptive and dark and ready. You did the work of the fire week. You held the launch pad. You confirmed the trajectory. And now Uranus is entering Gemini and the 7-year wind has begun. And the first transmission has already arrived, even if you have not learned to read it yet. The lightning rod practice is the beginning of learning that language. The next 7 years are going to ask you to know what you know before you can explain why you know it, to trust the transmission that arrives before the proof, to receive the wind and understand that it is bringing something. Even when you cannot see what it's carrying, you are built for this. The spin cycle of April was the preparation, the clearing was the gift, and the first wind after the fire is yours. This is Living the Wheel, where we follow the cycles of nature and the cosmos and the wisdom of the five bodies to navigate our human experience with ancient knowledge and embodied practices. Thank you so much for being here with me. I'm Danielle, and I'll see you in the next one.